thug who unbuttoned the girl's coat revealed an evil smile. Just after laying the blanket on the ground, I found that the gun on the table was missing. Thug, who heard the gunshots, came to check. The girl shot and killed them all. Not long after, Moody walked in. He looked at the corpse on the ground and suddenly raised his gun and turned to the cabinet. When he slowly opened the cabinet, the girl had already aimed at him. Moody raised his hands to the girl. The girl saw that Moody was not hostile and slowly lowered the gun. Moody decided to adopt her and named her Anna. 30 years later, Robert's son was kidnapped, and the kidnapper was the grown-up Anna. Anna was taken away by Robert's men, and then followed them to Robert's home. Robert beat Anna when he saw Anna go up.
Feed you to my pigs. Tell your boss it's done.
We just find people who can't be found.
Suddenly Anna took out the dagger and killed Robert. Anna killed another subordinate, and then Anna kicked down another subordinate. Anna killed everyone quickly. It turns out that Anna has been trained by Moody to be a top professional killer. Anna swaggered out of the door, and the guard watched her leave. He didn't catch up until he learned that Robert had been killed. But Anna is not worried at all, because Moody has already ambushed in the distance. After a few shots, all the men were killed. Afterwards, Anna found Moody to meet and completed the task, and they received $7 million from their employer. Anna returned home at night and found that the nanny at home had been killed. Anna immediately packed up her money and passport, and was going to find Moody to go abroad to avoid the limelight. Suddenly one of them raised his gun and shot at Anna. Anna flipped over and kicked down the table for cover. After the shooting, the killer opened the door and walked in. Seeing the two long legs motionless on the ground, one went out to make a phone call, while the other stepped forward to confirm the body. Hearing the sound, the killer hurried in to check, but only saw the corpse of his companion, which frightened him, turned his head and ran away. But, when Anna came to Moody's house, she found Moody dead in the bathtub. Anna didn't know who killed Moody. At this moment, Anna discovered a remote control. Anna flipped the switch, and a drone flew towards her. Anna took off the USB flash drive above, and suddenly seemed to understand something. The next day, Anna plugged in the USB flash drive, and began to check the information Moody left for Anna. It turns out that Moody is a good friend of his father, and he has been looking for the murderer of Anna's family for many years. Moody found out that all this was related to a wealthy businessman named Vol. It can be traced to this point, but Moody was accidentally killed. In order to find out the truth of the matter, Anna finds the hacker Keaton and asks him to help find Vol's information. On the third day, Keaton quickly handed over the information to Anna. It is known from the information that Vol brings many bodyguards every time he goes out, but Vol likes to smoke cigars. Therefore, Anna first prepared a box of high-quality cigars, and mailed it to Vol by express, and then visited him in person. Anna first confirmed that Vol had received the cigar, and that there was only one bodyguard with him. So Anna directly asked him to explain the cause of death, about his family and Moody. Vol looked at his bodyguard instead. At this moment the bodyguard stood up suddenly and said that this man knew nothing because he was not Vol. The bodyguard killed the man with a single shot, and then called his subordinates to surround Anna. At this time Anna took out the dagger hidden in the cigar, went up and stabbed it, picked up the gun, and killed his subordinates with 2 shots. Then climb into the vent and escape. The people below shot wildly at the ventilation ducts. In desperation, Anna forcefully turned on all the nozzles to cover up the sound of footsteps. Anna came to the power distribution room, unplugged a high-voltage wire, and threw it directly on the ground. The bodyguard was electrocuted and his body was pumped continuously. Anna, who ran out, turned around and shot 2 more bodyguards. In the end, Anna grabbed the fire water bag and jumped directly. Anna just ran out of the gate, but an accident happened. When Anna woke up again, she had already suffered inhuman torture. Several people were pouring water into her mouth non-stop, and then hung her up with sheets. Anna stepped on the head of the bed, but was pushed away by the man. She seized the opportunity to pinch the man's neck, then kicked the 2 men down again. Anna cut the rope with an iron piece, picked up the iron plate, and beat up several men. Anna strangled her bald head with a sheet, and kicked it hard, and the wash basin was broken. Anna came to the bodyguard's house, pressed his head and stuffed it into the bathtub. As soon as Anna stepped out of the gate, she was shot in the stomach. When the killer was about to kill Anna, he was suddenly shot and killed. It turned out that it was Moody, and he was not dead. He took Anna back to the hotel to treat the wound, and explained that he was only faking death in order to elicit the real Vol. The next day, after Vol learned of Moody's death, he prepared to throw a banquet. On the night of the banquet, Anna disguised herself as a waiter. The banquet officially began, and Vol walked to the podium. At this time, when Anna raised his gun to shoot, he was thrown down by the bodyguard, and the scene was in chaos. Anna hid in the crowd and escaped, and Vol also hid in the basement. The bodyguard hit Anna with a single shot. At the same time, Moody sneaked into the basement. It turned out that Vol, Moody and Anna's father were good friends, but Vol killed Anna's whole family for profit. Since then, Moody and Vol have turned against each other and vowed to avenge Anna's family. Afterwards, Moody took out a big bomb from his bag, and he was going with Vol to accompany Anna's father. On the other side, the bodyguards caught up with Anna, but Anna said that the task had been completed. Only then did the bodyguard understand. After a loud noise, the basement was razed to the ground. Anna took the opportunity to run back to the place where she was kidnapped, where Anna wanted to comfort her family members, who died. At this moment, the bodyguard also chased in, and the two raised their guns at the same time. In the end, only 2 gunshots were heard and the film ended.